Hi and welcome to my video. It's been a minute since I did a booktube video. I needed a bit of a break, so I filmed a few before the end of the year and had them post throughout the end of the year, but I was going to get straight back into it as soon as January started, but I just needed a week to adjust because obviously the new year's gone off with a bang, a crash, I don't know, a mushroom cloud again. It was just been, a bit crazy, so I wanted to settle into a new routine before start to do booktube again. So I've taken my week off and I'm back, and today I wanted to go through all the books that I read in December. So my December wrap up, I read 8 books which is actually quite good. 8 books in December. I'm surprised I read that much. It was quite a busy month, but so I will go through each book. I'm feeling lazy today. Normally I'd hold up the book and point at it and stuff, but I'm feeling kind of lazy, so I'm just going to put a picture up here probably of the books. The first book I read in December was That Reminds Me by Derek Owusu. I've talked about this book a lot. I've talked about it in TBRs and in my on my best reads of 2020, I think. I've talked about it so much so I'm not going to go through it again, but That Reminds Me was my first read in December. It was a really good start to the month. It's a story written in prose and I really enjoyed it. I felt so emotional, especially at the ending. It hit me hard in the feels. In fact, I think this month was the month of feels. All the books seem to have quite emotional reactions from me. Maybe it's just how I was feeling. But next I read Rainbow Milk by Paul Mendes. That was a debut. Oh, That Reminds Me was also a debut, and so was Rainbow Milk. I've also talked about this book a lot. Rainbow Milk was an amazing read. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a story about a young man called Jesse who's a black gay Jehovah's Witness, and he runs away from his Jehovah's Witness group community and moves to London and becomes a male sex worker. So it's following his kind of coming of age, following his development and growth. It's a very emotional story. It was brilliant to read. I felt super invested in the characters. I did have my gripes with it and I went through them in my best and worst reads of 2020 video, so I've been through all my gripes so I won't go through them again, but it was excellent. This book and the one I just mentioned, That Reminds Me, were both 4-star reads for me. Then I read, this is interesting, then I read Born to Love, Cursed to Feel, which is a poetry collection by Samantha King, and I gave this 2 stars, but hear me out. It is something that I bought in 2016. It was when I sort of got back into reading a lot of poetry and writing my own poetry at that time, and in 2016 I was a wee nipper. I was young and at the time this book, this poetry collection, was everything I needed. It meant so much to me. I was in I'd had a horrible breakup and a horrible experience and I was feeling heartbroken and I had so much longing, and this book just gave me everything I wanted. So I had loads of dog-eared pages, and this was before I was really into writing in books or annotating, so I just dog-eared the pages. And what's funny is the pages that I dog-eared, the poems that I stood out for me, that I marked, were not the ones that really felt like something to me. They were all the ones about love and stuff, but all the ones that I remember really hitting me were the ones that are about pain. And it's just really weird how I tried to keep hold of the good ones rather than the more painful ones. But rereading it now, for over 4 years later, and seeing how much I've grown and what just a different place I'm in, was really strange. It became this weird time capsule, and it made me realise how much I've changed and developed. And rereading it now, even though it still means a lot to me, this collection, because it meant a lot to me then and it was what I needed at the time, now I realise it's quite superficial and shallow, and I really disagree with some of the poems. I find that a lot of them have quite unhealthy depictions of love and romance, and a lot of needing someone to complete you, sort of that kind of vibe, which I definitely don't stand for. It's just strange that where I am now, how much more settled in myself and my relationship I am now compared to where I was when I was very vulnerable and hurt and much emotionally younger, and seeing how I interpret this differently. So how now it's a 2-star reads, maybe not even that, but it back then it probably would have been a 5-star read. It was everything I needed. It's just strange how we change, and it was strange looking back on my old self And yeah, it was a really strange experience, even if now I think it's very like insta poetry and it's not really my thing. Next, I read one of my favourite books of all time, which is The Colour Purple. I love this book. It was a reread for me as well. I first read it actually last year in April because I got it for my birthday from a friend, and I absolutely adore this book. And I reread it and I just loved it even more. It's so well known. Most people have seen the film. I haven't seen the film and I'm not sure I'm ready to. And I spoke about this book as well already. But it's a story that follows a young woman called Celie, and it's written as her letters to God because she writes down her prayers because she can't say them out loud because she feels too much shame. She writes down her prayers and basically just follow her experience as a black woman in the American South. It's in between the wars as well. It's an emotional ride and it's amazing, and you just fall in love with the characters. And even though it's all written from essentially just Celie's perspective, you get so much depth and detail of the characters. You see their growth and their detriment. You see, like, it's just, yeah, it's just really good. I love it, and it's just every time the ending, every time it gets me so hard. I just think it's just an amazing story. I just love it so much. So that was a 5-star read for me. I knew it would be. It was a reread. I love it. So that was a very like highlight of my reading month. Next I read Multiple Choice by Alejandro Zambra. This was a strange one. It's a book, but it's actually multiple choice questions, and it was written based upon the Chilean standardized testing that they offer students, and it was very interesting and strange, and I feel like I should have got more out of it than I did, and I think I didn't get that much out of it because I have very slim knowledge of the Chilean educational system, so it didn't strike me maybe as much as it should have, apart from it's obviously a meta commentary on the absurdity of our educational system, of standardized testing, which I support. I think it is absurd. So this book is set where every section is different sets of multiple choice questions, and it starts off very simple and they get harder, and it's just like, that's it, that's all the book is, and it's really strange. It's something I recommend you do just to experience, because I was very engaged with it. I gave it 3.5 stars. I think that's partly because I didn't get out of it as much as someone else maybe would, and also because I think I was expecting like some big reveal at the end about something, or like, oh, this means this, and all your answers have significance, when actually the whole point is that it's not significant because the whole thing is just bullshit, really. But I think I was still kind of hoping something at the end, and there wasn't, so I kind of just felt like, oh, I don't know what to do now with this. So maybe something to revisit in the future, I don't know. Maybe I just need to educate myself better on standardised testing across multiple countries rather than just my own. So that was a strange one. Next I read Starvaker by Andrew Michael Hurtley. This was a 3-star read for me, and I don't even know what genre this book falls into. It's like a creepy... It's not really a thriller. It's not thrilling, but it's like... Creepy should be a genre of its own. I'm sure it has a specific genre, but I can't place it right now, and I can't be bothered looking it up. So, Starvaker is about 2 parents that live in the Yorkshire Dales, which is very cool because I live in Yorkshire, so I was like, ooh. And so 2 parents that live in the Yorkshire Dales that have recently, in the last like 6 months or something, lost their son, who was 5 years old, called Ewan. And it's exploring their grief and how they deal with their grief differently. But the stories are entangled, are weaved with some folklore, which makes it really creepy, and stuff happens and it's creepy and it's so good. I'm not going to spoil it, but the ending is like, yeah, I wish the whole book could be like the ending, because the ending is creepy and unsettling. It's a short read, it's an easy read, it's super accessible, so if you don't like horror, or if you're a bit like sensitive about horror or thrillers, this would be a great book because it's not scary. I didn't find it scary, but it's like creepy and a little bit unsettling, so it gives you that sort of horror thriller vibe without being deep in the genre where you're going to be like not be able to sleep at night or whatever. But I only gave it 3 stars because I didn't feel connected to the characters. I think in order for a thriller or horror or an unsettling story to really work, you need to feel some connection to the characters, or at least one of the characters, whether it's that you hate them or whether it's that you really identify with them. But I just kind of felt super neutral about the main character. I didn't really care about him. I was just like, meh. So I guess I couldn't connect more to the story because I felt so meh. I love how ambiguous it is. I love how it doesn't explain anything. This stuff happens and it doesn't explain it, and I think that is genius, because things stop being scary when you explain what they are. When you reveal it, it's not scary anymore because you know what it is. But the unknown is scary, and I think that's really, I think that's really well done. Next, I read a really short book. It was on the Penguin Modern collection, and it was, I'm doing this like I'm holding it, but I'm not. But it was The Master's Tools Will Not Dismantle the Master's House by Audre Lorde, and it was a collection of 5 of her essays. I think I mentioned the Penguin Moderns in my best and worst reads of 2020, so it's like there was like a set of like, I don't know how many books, maybe 50, maybe more, of little like books. Some of them were poetry collections, some essays, some short stories from various authors, and I guess it's to celebrate these authors, and there's like a diverse range of authors. So I got a few of them, of authors that I cared about. So I got like Audre Lorde, I got Martin Luther King, Ralph Ellison, James Baldwin. I think I got like an Irish poet as well, and some other ones. So I read Audre Lorde's one, which had her 5 essays in, and this was exactly what I needed at the time. I've already talked about it quite a lot in my best and worst reads video, but I really needed this. I've been so hurt and angry and upset about the state of the world at the moment, especially in England, where there's a lot of anti-Black Lives Matter protests going on and things, and it's been like making my blood boil and making me very emotional and upset and feeling unsafe. And reading these essays gave me some sense of solace and power and made me feel a little bit less helpless. It's just really what I needed at the time, and I'm really, really glad I read it when I did, and I would definitely reread this essay collection for sure. The last book, I'm out of breath. I speak so fast, I need to like work on that. Okay, so the last book I read was Mind of My Mind by Octavia Butler. So Mind of My Mind is the second book in the 4-part series. I think I called it Pattern Master, but I think it's called Patternist series. I think previously I've said it wrong. But it's the Patternist series, which has 4 books in. The first book was Wild Seed, the second book is Mind of My Mind, third book is Clay's Ark, and the fourth book is Pattern Master, I think. Yeah, and it was really, really good. I don't really know how to explain this series to you, but Octavia Butler is obviously a sci-fi writer, but she incorporates racial identity and culture and all these things into her work, so it doesn't feel like hard-hitting sci-fi, people in space and complicated. So it's not like hardcore sci-fi. There's gonna be a lot if you're not accustomed to reading a lot of sci-fi things. I know they have very intense worlds and exploration of scientific concepts, but Octavia Butler, I call it soft sci-fi, and I know that's not a thing, but I'm not going to call it that, because to me it incorporates sci-fi elements and really interesting dynamics and characters without being so complicated that you can't keep up, or you're just like, if you're new to it, you don't know what's happening. It's really interesting. I love Octavia Butler's writing. I only got into her in 2020, and I just think she has such an amazing way of writing. Her characters all have life and individuality, and she uses concepts like sci-fi concepts and these unusual, almost like fantasy concepts to explore like very like real topics, you know, and explore like things that really mirror our history and our world, and it's just really interesting. Like I read Kindred by her last year as well, and it was just amazing. So yeah, that was the last book I read. So I'm trying to complete the series. So I've only got 2 more books left in this series, and I have another one of her series to read as well. So yeah, that was the last book I read. I thought I'd finish this video by going through my current reads. So I've already read a couple of books already, because we're already like partway through January. But I have 3 books that I'm kind of on the go. I am currently reading Love's Executioner by Irvin Yalom. This is a reread for me. I adore this book, and in this, it's called Love's Executioner and Other Tales of Psychotherapy. So in this, Yalom recounts his therapeutic endeavours with 10 different clients. He calls them patients, it's just how he works, but 10 different therapy clients, and it is fascinating and moving, and it's so accessible. They read like stories, like fiction stories, even though they're not. And even though it's about his clients, I see it way more as a sort of character study of him, and you learn so much about him, how he thinks, how he works, his flaws. He's an incredibly flawed person. He has so many biases, but I think it makes him very human. And I think it's good if you're not like a therapy person, you're not having therapy, you're not into therapy, you're not a therapist, you can still read this because it kind of gives you some insight into the mind of a therapist that is a bit more grounded in reality rather than what you see on TV, which is always really bad. And it's just really, really interesting. And I read it before and I read it again, and the more experienced I become in my own practice, the more I take from this. So I think I will reread it in the future, and hopefully I'll take even more than what I've been taking now. So I'm like partway through this now. I have a poetry collection on the go as well. I'm currently reading There Are More Beautiful Things Than Beyonce. I love this cover. I think it's great. So I'm currently reading this. I'm not going to share my thoughts with it yet. I haven't finished. I'm nearly done. But it's going. That's what's happening. And finally, because I've nearly finished Love's Executioner, I've started reading Lucy by Jamaica Kincaid. And I've only just started it, so I don't really have anything to say about it, but Lucy is a story about, I talked about it before in my Caribbean Literature Haul, but it's about a woman that travels from the West Indies to America as an au pair. And I love the way she's described. So Lucy is a 19-year-old woman, and she's described as vinegary on the back, and I really like that, vinegary. I think that's great. We should use that to describe way more people. But yeah, so those are the books I'm currently reading. I should get them finished before the end of January. And those are the books that are in December. So this is where I'm at. I don't have anything else to add. I can breathe now. I need to slow down and take my breaths, but I just didn't want to sit here for ages, and I still have talked too much. But anyway, thank you for watching. How do you end videos? I forgot. Thank you for watching, and happy reading, and I'll see you around.